Did Bria Hartley really smirk after Sophie Cunningham's season-ending injury? That single moment has exploded into the biggest controversy of the WNBA season. And
it looked like Bria Hartley is going into hiding. It looked like Bria Hartley is running after news broke.
We need to break it all down. It happened in an instant. 1 second, the game was tight. Both teams trading baskets, the crowd buzzing with every possession. The next second, the entire arena froze. Sophie Cunningham collapsed to the floor, clutching her knee in agony.
Cunningham is down. My goodness.
Silence was deafening. Fans held their breath. And then the cameras caught something no one expected. As trainers sprinted to Sophie's side, Bria Hartley turned, looked back, and smirked.
Is going viral with Bria Hartley with the sinister grin, right? This malevolent look that's on her face right now.
Yes, smirk. That single expression captured in one replay angle.
Clearly smiling after injuring Sophie Cunningham, man.
Instantly went viral.
Moment as we went to commercial, Sophie Cunningham hit the floor hard and she is being helped off the floor, headed.
And just like that, the story stopped being about the injury itself and became all about Hartley's reaction. Social media erupted. Clips of the Hartley grin were replayed, paused, screenshotted, and dissected frame by frame. Was it just a nervous reaction? Was it something more sinister? Fans didn't seem to care about nuance. To them, that smirk said it all. This is the dirtiest player in the league, one post read. Another declared, death taxes and Bria Hartley being at the scene of the crime. The outrage was instant and it was brutal. And here's where things took an even darker turn. Sophie Cunningham wasn't just injured, she was done. The tests confirmed the worst, a torn MCL. Her season was over before it had even really begun. What might have been dismissed as unfortunate contact suddenly became a flashpoint for an entire conversation about dirty plays, player safety, and accountability in the WNBA. Fans weren't just angry, they were convinced. Convinced that Hartley's smirk revealed her true intent. Convinced that the league wasn't doing enough to protect its players. And convinced that Sophie Cunningham had been targeted. Think about it. When a player is lying on the floor, clearly in pain, what do you expect from their opponent? Concern, sportsmanship, at least some sign of regret. But instead, what people saw was a grin. A grin that many believe told the Real story. And the timing couldn't have been worse for Hartley. Because this wasn't just a one-off moment. She already carried a reputation. A reputation for physical play, ejections, and controversial run-ins that fans were more than ready to bring back into the spotlight. In one night, Sophie Cunningham lost her season, and Bria Hartley may have lost her career. Here's the truth. If this had been almost any other player, maybe people would have given them the benefit of the doubt. Injuries happen in basketball. Collisions are part of the game. But this wasn't just anyone. This was Bria Hartley, a player already known for crossing the line. Hartley's reputation didn't start with Sophie Cunningham. Fans were quick to remind everyone of the receipts. Over the past few seasons, Hartley has been ejected from games for unnecessary contact, cheap shots, and heated altercations. She's been labeled reckless more than once. And of course, who could forget the infamous scuffle with Angel Reese that included a hair pull? That incident alone had already branded her in the eyes of many as the league's ultimate agitator. So when that smirk showed up on the broadcast, it wasn't just a bad look, it was fuel for a fire that had been burning for years. Think about it. Sophie Cunningham goes down. She's screaming, clutching her knee. Trainers rush out. And then the camera pans to Hartley's face, capturing that tiny but unforgettable grin. For a split second, it looked like satisfaction. And because of her history, fans immediately connected the dots. To them, this wasn't just bad luck. It was a pattern. Social media did what it always does. It dug deeper. Screenshots surfaced showing Hartley liking posts that called her the dirtiest player in the WNBA. Fans jumped on it, insisting it was proof that she leaned into the villain role rather than distancing herself from it. One viral post summed up the outrage perfectly. Death, taxes, and Bria Hartley being at the scene of the crime. The timing couldn't have been worse. Instead of sympathy or understanding, Hartley's history became Exhibit A in the case against her. Every old highlight of her fouls, every shove, every scuffle, it was all dragged back to the surface. And suddenly, this wasn't just about Sophie Cunningham's injury anymore. It was about Hartley's entire career, her past, her present, and maybe even her future in the league. Because when fans, and even players' families, start calling you the dirtiest player in the game, redemption becomes almost impossible. If fans were angry, Sophie Cunningham's family was furious. And unlike most controversies that simmer quietly online, this one exploded because the people closest to Sophie refused to stay silent. Her sister Lindsay was the first to fire shots, publicly calling out the referees in a blistering post on X. She didn't mince words. Maybe you should focus less on finding players for commenting on poor officiating and more on hiring officials who can call a consistent game and protect your athletes. Pathetic. That post spread like wildfire because it struck a chord far beyond just Sophie's injury. It tapped into a frustration fans and players had been voicing all season. That officiating was inconsistent, dangerous plays weren't being stopped, and athletes were paying the price. But then came the real bombshell. Sophie's mother, Paula Cunningham. She jumped in with a blunt, emotional statement calling Hartley disgruntled, mean, and out of control. Even though she later deleted it, the damage was already done. Screenshots Screenshots flew across social media, amplifying the message and giving fans what felt like confirmation from the inside that Hartley wasn't just reckless, she was malicious. Think about how rare this is. Families of players almost never step into the spotlight. Usually it's coaches, teammates, or league officials making statements. But here, the silence from the WNBA and referees forced Sophie's family to take matters into their own hands. And when your mom and sister are calling someone out so publicly, the narrative changes instantly. To fans, it wasn't just speculation anymore. It was personal. It was raw. It was real. And that's what made this controversy boil over. What could have been brushed aside as an unfortunate basketball collision suddenly became the centerpiece of a much larger conversation about dirty play, about accountability, and about whether the WNBA was failing its own players. When Sophie's family spoke, people listened, and it left Bria Hartley with almost no defense. Here's the part that turned outrage into a full-blown crisis: the officiating. Fans weren't just furious at Bria Hartley, they were furious at the referees and the league itself. Because when Sophie Cunningham went down, the whistles were late, the response was slow, and the moment exposed what many have been shouting all season: the WNBA has an officiating problem. Think about it. Sophie was on the ground, clearly in pain, clutching her knee. Yet the play didn't stop immediately. The hesitation was glaring. And for fans, that delay wasn't just incompetence, it was dangerous negligence. This wasn't the first time officiating had been under the microscope. Players and coaches had been voicing frustrations all year long about inconsistent calls, uneven enforcement, and a lack of accountability. But Cunningham's injury brought it all crashing to the surface. And it wasn't analysts or commentators leading the charge. It was Sophie's own family. Lindsay Cunningham's fiery post went beyond protecting her sister. It called out the league's upside-down priorities. Players were being fined for criticizing officials, while questionable plays like Hartley's weren't bringing any immediate accountability. To fans, that was proof the system was broken. The criticism hit so hard because it was impossible to ignore. Sophie herself had already been fined multiple times earlier in the season for speaking out about officiating. Now she was sidelined with a season-ending injury, and her family was saying what many players were too scared to: that officials weren't protecting athletes, and the league wasn't fixing it. On top of that, Paula Cunningham's now-deleted post only made the outrage spread faster. When a player's mother publicly calls out an opponent for being mean and out of control, it's not just an emotional outburst, it's a direct indictment of the league for letting things get to this point. And here's the kicker: every second the WNBA stayed silent, the story grew bigger. Fans began demanding that Commissioner Kathy Engelbert and league leadership take action, not just on Hartley, but on the broken system that allowed moments like this to spiral out of control. This wasn't just about a single play anymore. It was about a league under fire. When Sophie Cunningham was helped off the floor and ruled out for the game, it felt like Indiana's night was already over. Add to that Caitlin Clark's absence, and the Fever looked dead in the water. By halftime, they trailed by 21 points. Broadcasters were framing the rest of the game as damage control. Fans were bracing for a blowout, and the energy in the arena was all but gone. But what happened next turned despair into one of the most unforgettable nights in franchise history. Inside that huddle, something flipped. Instead of collapsing, the Fever closed ranks. They adjusted rotations, leaned on grit over panic, and started clawing their way back. And at the center of that fight was Kelsey Mitchell. Mitchell didn't just play well, she delivered the performance of her career. She exploded in the second half, scoring 34 of her 38 points after the break. Every bucket chipped away at the deficit. Every drive reignited the crowd. And with each shot, the impossible comeback started to feel real. But Mitchell wasn't carrying the load alone. Veteran Odyssey Sims brought calm control to the floor, slowing the pace, cutting down turnovers, and making sure every possession counted. Her steady hand was exactly what the team needed when emotions could have easily boiled over. Then there was Aaliyah Boston, who completely dominated the paint. With a double-double, relentless rebounding, and interior defense that shut down second chances, she gave Indiana the balance they desperately needed. Her presence freed up Mitchell to keep attacking, and it turned the momentum fully in the Fever's favor. By the time the fourth quarter rolled around, the crowd was electric. Every defensive stop, every loose ball, every made shot felt like destiny. And when the final buzzer sounded, Indiana had not only won, they had completed the largest comeback in franchise history, erasing a 21-point deficit to shock the league with a 99-93 victory. On a night that should have been remembered only for loss and controversy, the Fever rewrote the script. They turned heartbreak into history. While the Fever were celebrating the greatest comeback in their franchise's history, Bria Hartley was doing the exact opposite, vanishing from sight. Almost overnight, fans noticed something strange. Hartley's social media accounts were either set to private or deleted altogether. No posts, no statements, no defense, just silence. And in today's sports world, silence speaks volumes. To fans, it looked like an admission of guilt. Why would a player disappear if they had nothing to hide? The viral smirk was already circulating everywhere, but the sudden online blackout only made things look worse. Speculation exploded immediately. Was she about to be suspended? Was she already under investigation by the league? Or was Bria Hartley about to quit the WNBA altogether? Commentators and fans flooded forums with theories. Some believed she was lawyering up, preparing for disciplinary action. Others thought the backlash had simply become too overwhelming. One common sentiment echoed across social media: if you can dish it out on the court, you better be able to stand tall off it. Hiding makes you look guilty. reality. The timing couldn't have been worse, because while Hartley was retreating into the shadows, Sophie Cunningham was doing the exact opposite, leaning into the spotlight, speaking her mind, and rallying support. The contrast was glaring, one player pulling back, the other stepping forward. And for fans already convinced that Hartley was the dirtiest player in the league, her disappearing act didn't just confirm their suspicions, it cemented them. The more Hartley pulled away, the louder the noise around her became. What started as one controversial moment had spiraled into full-blown questions about her future in the WNBA. Would she face a suspension? Would the league finally make an example out of her? Or would she simply walk away before the decision was even made? Right now, one thing is clear. Bria Hartley isn't just fighting for her reputation. She might be fighting for her career. While Bria Hartley was disappearing, Sophie Cunningham was doing the exact opposite. Injured, sidelined, and out for the season, she could have stayed quiet, focused on recovery, and let the league and her family handle the storm. But that's not Sophie Cunningham. Instead, she stepped right into the spotlight and made her voice the center of the conversation. And her first move? A post that lit up social media. Just 4 words. F around and find out. It was short, blunt, and instantly viral. Fans didn't need an explanation. The message was clear. Sophie wasn't about to let her toughness be questioned, and she sure wasn't going to let critics or doubters write the narrative for her. Even from the sidelines, she was still setting the tone. But here's where things got even more interesting. On her podcast, Sophie surprised everyone by defending Bria Hartley. Yes, the same Bria Hartley who had just collided with her knee, ending her season. She told listeners that she and Hartley were actually friends, that she had nothing but love for her, and that she didn't believe there was any intent to injure. In her own words, it was a basketball play. Wrong spot, wrong time. She would never try to hurt me. That twist changed everything, because while fans were still replaying the smirk and labeling Hartley the dirtiest player in the league, Sophie herself was asking people to back off. She even called out her own mother for going too far with her angry social media posts. But Sophie's message wasn't soft. Her defiant posts and her careful defense worked together in a powerful way. On one hand, she stood tall against critics, proving she wouldn't be disrespected or dismissed just because of an injury. On the other hand, she showed class by refusing to drag Hartley further into the firestorm, even when the entire internet wanted blood. That balance, defiance with grace, instantly made her a rallying figure for fans. Sophie Cunningham wasn't just another injured player. She was a leader, even from the bench. When the dust settled, this wasn't just about one injury, one smirk, or even one player's reputation. The Bria Hartley, Sophie Cunningham incident cracked open a much deeper conversation about the WNBA, one that fans, players, and even families have been waiting to have. At the heart of it all is player safety. If the league can fine players like Sophie Cunningham for speaking out against officiating, but can't prevent a season-ending injury from questionable contact, then what message is being sent? That speaking up is punished, but reckless play is overlooked? Fans weren't shy about pointing out the contradiction. The officiating debate only grew louder. Lindsey Cunningham's viral post cut straight to the league's credibility, and the silence from officials and Commissioner Kathy Engelbert left more questions than answers. Who is responsible for protecting athletes? Why does it take family outrage to spark accountability? And will anything actually change before another player goes down? Meanwhile, the two players at the center of the storm went in opposite directions. Sophie used her platform to show leadership, defiant to her critics, but gracious toward Hartley. That dual response turned her into a rallying figure for fans who admired her toughness and balance. Even off the court, Sophie proved she wasn't backing down. Hartley, on the other hand, retreated, locking down her social media, staying silent, and leaving fans to fill in the blanks only fueled speculation. Is she under investigation, facing suspension, or maybe even considering walking away from the game? Right now, no one knows. And that's what makes this story bigger than one viral clip, because the fallout isn't just about Hartley and Cunningham, it's about the entire league. The WNBA is at a crossroads, under pressure to protect its stars, hold officials accountable, and prove it won't let dirty play or reckless officiating define the game. Sophie's season may be over. Hartley's career may be hanging by a thread. But the conversation this incident sparked, that's just the beginning.